Okay, so tonight we're here with Jerry Goetsch, and you brought a friend today.
Yeah, I did.
You brought Bob Athey. Thanks for coming. So, back in 2018, you did the Veterans Day ceremony.
I did.
So, I think we should start with that, and now kind of give us the story of how you got here.
I guess what I'd like to do, Chuck, is tell you what led up to that.
Let's hear it.
And so, basically, about 10 years ago, we had to clean out my mom's house in Nassau. And amongst all of her stuff, she saved all the letters that I wrote when I was in Vietnam. There's about 50 of them in a bundle. And among those letters, there were 3 of them. One of them came from KDMA radio station in Montevideo, one from WCCO in Minneapolis, and one from Star and Tribune. And all 3 of them had said that I had arrived in Vietnam. I was with the D Company of the 27th Combat Engineers. And I didn't know anything about those letters.
How did the news know? The Army must have told you or
That's a
something?
good question. I haven't found out how they got the information that I was there. I don't know. But so anyway, I was on a road trip and I decided I need to thank somebody for doing that.
Yep.
And so I called KDMA radio in Montevideo. I couldn't get a hold of anybody else.
Yep.
So I got KDMA and I got a DJ and he said, would you call back tomorrow and talk to the station manager? And I did. So it was Darren Sorby. Darren Sorby is also an Army veteran. And he asked me if I'd do an interview.
Okay.
And so I said, sure, I'll come up and do an interview because it was right before Memorial Day in 2017. And so that was maybe a year before this. Maybe it was in 16. So anyway, I did that interview and it went real well. People heard it. And so didn't think any more about it. But then about Christmas time, I got a call from Darren Sorby and he said, I'm changing jobs. I'm going to Pioneer Public TV, and I'm wondering if you would like to do an interview with me there. And so that's how the interview with Pioneer Public TV happened.
Okay.
And so we did that interview, and that came before this one, before the 2018. And so that was this one that I have right here.
Yeah. So that was Vietnam Remembered.
Yeah.
The southwestern Minnesota.
Yeah.
So that's all. So that was Vietnam vets from this part of the state.
Yeah. There were 8 of us, and 2 of us from Ortonville.
Okay.
That participated in this documentary, and so then when I did that came out real good. I was real happy with the way they presented that.
Yeah.
There were a couple misinterpretations in there, but pretty much the real deal. And so then, because of that, Sergeant Major and my daughter persuaded me to do the 2018
Veterans
Day program. And first thing I told her, I said, I'm not a public speaker, Jen. I can't do it. And yeah, Dad, you just need to prepare.
Yeah.
So I did. She said, but don't make it longer than 15 minutes because the kids will go to sleep.
Oh, yeah. That's true, too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's how the 2018 Veterans Day program transpired. But if you want to play that now.
I got one question for you.
Sure.
Before you did the 2006, the PBS stuff, had you talked about Vietnam very much? Or was that the first time?
That was something I was going to bring up, is that up until we found the letters that I wrote to my mom, I just never talked about it. And so that night, I went home and I read about 3 months of letters. And I got to the point where, no, I didn't want to read anymore.
Yep.
I didn't tell her all the details, but I could read between the lines. And when I got to the certain points, I just didn't want to deal with that again. So I don't know, I've never read them yet. Yeah. So, but one of the things in these letters, my mom asked me, or she was worried because she hadn't gotten any letters for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote her back, telling her that it was raining constantly and we couldn't find any dry paper. And the letter had raindrops on it.
Oh,
you could see the raindrops where the ink ran on the letter. So I got that far.
That's where you got?
Yeah.
Do you think so that you've told your story like now probably like 5 or 6 times, four times in public?
4 times.
4 times. Does it, for other people that haven't talked about it much, does it get easier every time for you? Or no, it stays hard.
I'm all wound up right now just thinking about having to talk about it. But
so what persuaded you to talk about it? Because a lot of people don't.
Say it again.
A lot of people don't ever talk about it. What's persuaded you to?
Well, it's just, you get the feeling of you're back there,
Mhm.
you know, and you got to deal with that feeling,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you're aware of too.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely. But what makes you keep doing it?
Oh, you asked me to.
There you go. Just out of the goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess one thing is I'm pretty happy that it would be on file forever for my generations to see.
To see. Okay.
And so they can get a little feel of, you know, what happened.
What happened? Yeah. No, we appreciate it.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Yeah. Let's watch this for
Sure.
Candace. We'll flip this over.
Ask me because it's a very condensed 16
Mhm.
minutes of, you know, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, everyone. Happy Veterans Day. My name is Gerald Goetsch, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. It's a privilege and an honor to be here today to tell you about some of the experiences of being in the Army and going to Vietnam. I hope that you enjoyed the film clip from Vietnam. I guess I maybe gave you the information you need to look at the whole interview. I'd like to give you a very special thanks to my daughter, Mrs. Nye, and retired Sergeant Major Joe Eustace for putting the Veterans Day program together. Also, thanks to all the students for making this a great Veterans Day celebration. It's very important to all of us. Welcome everyone, and thank you all for coming to celebrate Veterans Day. We are here today to honor all of our veterans and thank them for their service. To our World War II veterans and Korean War veterans, thank you. You are my heroes. As a small boy, I remember you talking about your experiences. I remember when Korean War veterans came home in 1953. My cousin was a Korean War veteran, and I remember how happy our family was when he came home. To our Vietnam veterans, I say welcome home, brothers, and thank you for your service. To our Gulf War veterans and veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan and the war on terrorism, thank you. You are truly heroes. To all of our active duty military, you are the ones putting yourselves in harm's way to protect our country. You are the new heroes. A very special thanks to you and your families for your sacrifices. My story starts in Appleton, Minnesota. I was born on May 26, 1946. My parents were Walter and Vivian Goetsch. I attended country school near Nassau, Minnesota, and I went to Marietta, Minnesota for junior high and high school. In 1964, I went to California, and I got a job in Palo Alto at the Eastman Kodak Film Processing Lab. The Vietnam War was escalating, and in the fall of 1965, I received my draft notice. I was inducted into the U.S. Army on January 3rd, 1966. I was 19 years old. I was sent to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic infantry training, and after basic training, I was trained to be a combat engineer and later assigned to D Company of the 27th Combat Engineer Battalion at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. We were told at that time that we were going to Vietnam to stop communist aggression in South Vietnam. Our job as a combat engineer unit would be clearing landing zones, building base camps, and airfields and runways. We continued our training at Fort Campbell, which included jungle and survival training and clearing minefields. We also had hands-on experience with C3 and C4 plastic explosives and det cord, which we use for our landing zones in the jungle. On about the 7th of September 1966, we deployed as a unit and left from Oakland, California on the USS Simon Buckner troop carrier. The ship held about 5,000 troops. There were 2,500 Army troops and 2,500 Marines. The ship's cruising speed was 20 knots, and which equaled about 550 miles a day. So with one stop in Guam and another stop in Da Nang to drop off the Marines, it took about 3 weeks to get to Saigon. It was a long, rough ride, and some of the guys got seasick. Our squad leader, Sergeant Taylor, was one of them. He threw up over the side of the ship and lost his false teeth. So it took about 6 months for him to get new teeth, so he was over there without teeth for a while. I didn't put this in my thing, but we affectionately called him Sergeant Gummer. We arrived off the coast of Saigon on September 29th, 1966, and landing crafts came and out and picked us up, ferried us to shore, just like you'd see in the movies. And we had no idea what was going to happen, but lucky for us, there was no enemy fire when we landed. We were transported by truck to a staging area near Long Bin and stayed there until our equipment arrived. It took about 2 weeks for our company to get all of our equipment and to get our first assignment. We left our staging area at Long Bin and started a convoy to Daojiang, located about 80 miles north of the Michelin, in the Michelin rubber plantation. And our assignment was to clear a landing zone and build a runway and a base camp. Our convoy included all of D Company of the 27th Combat Engineer Battalion. There were 120 of us. The convoy was led by a Jeep with an M60 machine gun and followed by 2 lowboy semi-trailers loaded with 2 HT-16 Alice Chalmers dozers. And it had also 1 road grader on a flatbed, 4 5-ton dump trucks, and I was driving one of the dump trucks. And behind us were 4 deuce-and-a-half trucks loaded with men and equipment, also several 3/4-ton trucks and Jeeps with the officers and radio equipment. The road to Daojiang was narrow, muddy, and slippery, so it was very slow going. And we also encountered many refugees fleeing the countryside to escape the communists. During one of these encounters, the lead lowboy with a dozer on it slid off the narrow road and nearly tipped over. So the convoy was delayed several hours while the dozer and the truck were gotten back on the road. We finally arrived near Daojiang in late afternoon and immediately began to secure a perimeter and establish a small base camp. Our training kicked in. 12-man tents went up quickly, bunkers were built, foxholes were dug. Each foxhole on the perimeter had a field of fire established to overlap with the next foxhole. Now there weren't any infantry there yet. It was just as combat engineers, but we were trained to be infantry first and then combat engineers second. So we had practiced all of this at Fort Campbell during our training, so we knew exactly what to do. We got our tents up, we got our holes dug, we got our work done, and we ate sea rations, and some of us slept while others pulled guard duty. I slept, and about midnight I woke up to a loud explosion. A mortar round hit less than 20 feet to my left. There were more explosions. Our squad leader, Sergeant Taylor, was yelling orders. Mortars, mortars, get on the ground. Get on your flak jacket, grab your helmet, get your weapons, get to the perimeter. Shrapnel from the mortar round had come through my mosquito net and missed me by inches. I was on the ground getting my pants and my boots on and grabbed my weapons and my gear. It was a calm, damp night, so the smoke from the mortars hung like fog, just about 4 feet above us. Above us were parachute flares, so it was like daylight. Sergeant Taylor was still yelling behind us, stay down, get to the perimeter. The whole thing was like a bad dream, but it was real. My buddy J.D. Wardlow and I crawled under the trucks that were parked in a circle near the perimeter. Mortar round had hit the fuel tanks, but we crawled right through that to get to our foxhole that we had dug earlier. We made it. Now what Wardlow said. We had M14 rifles with 6 20-round clips and 2 hand grenades each. Well, we hadn't fired our weapons since we got to Vietnam, so we each fired a couple rounds. The mortar stopped. It was totally quiet. We waited. "What's next?" we said quietly. And we waited some more and nothing happened. And dawn came, about 6 hours. The smoke cleared. We started hearing all clear. We went back to the tent for sea rations, and we started to see the damage. Some of the tents looked like they were hit with shotgun shells. 111 mortar rounds had hit in our little perimeter that night, and we were very lucky, only 2 wounded. My friend Larry Weimer and our motor pool sergeant Nelson. None serious. We had survived what they call the baptism under fire. We didn't know it then, but we were right in the middle of a Viet Cong stronghold. We got mortared every night for the next 30 days. We slept with our boots on next to our foxholes. We took turns sleeping and pulling guard duty. 2 hours on and 2 hours off. 2 hours of sleep, 2 hours of watching. We were there to build a runway, and the Viet Cong were determined to stop us. Finally, artillery and armored cavalry units arrived from the 4th Division, 3rd Brigade, and began pounding the surrounding area with artillery. Armored personnel carriers patrolled the outer perimeters while we were working. Airstrikes were called in. The jets were so low that we could see the pilots in there. It was pretty awesome. We were glad to see them come. We worked for about a week, and then for some reason our 4 dump trucks were sent to get a load of crushed rock each from a place called the Black Virgin Mountain. And I was a dump truck driver at the time, along with J.D. Wardlow, Titherington, and another fellow that I can't remember his name. So a Jeep with the M60 took the lead, and we were on a 30-mile run to the Black Mountain, just 5 vehicles. We made it within about 5 miles of the mountain, and J.D. Wardlow was ahead of me. I'm the last truck in the convoy, and we were on a narrow stretch of road with rice paddies on both sides. And I see a lot of people out there planting rice. Didn't look right. We were moving pretty fast and staying close together. There's an explosion. Wardlow's truck hits a landmine. All 8 of his black tires just disappeared. They were blown to shreds. Shrapnel and gravel hit my windshield. But I'm far enough back so it didn't break. My first thought was, we got to keep moving. If Wardlow stops, I'm going to push him. He kept his truck going. He had front-wheel drive on the truck. The front wheels were spinning. He got to a wide spot in the road, and he bailed out and got in my truck and jumped in with me, and we're out of there. And that's about all I can remember about that episode. The next thing I recall is that we were back in base camp, and we're telling Sergeant Melton, the motor pool sergeant, what happened. And he asked Wardlow if he thought he needed to go change his shorts. We had a good laugh over that, and it was just like matter of fact, because we had been mortared so many times, and the motor pool sergeant, it didn't even affect him. He said, "Well, you're back, everything's okay." So then he said to me, "Well, Wardlow needs a truck." And so he said, "I want you to drive a lowboy, and Wardlow can drive your truck." And so I thought, good for me. Lowboy drivers are an SB5 slot, and I was only an SB4, so I had survived another episode, and I was going to get a raise, so I thought that was pretty good. And a few days later, after pushing dirt with the dozer for the runway, Sergeant Melton sent me out to pick up an armored personnel carrier that had hit a landmine. And in the movie clip that you see, that was the armored personnel carrier that I was picking up. So it took about 6 weeks to finish the runway at Dao Tiang, and during that time we had many mortar attacks. Sergeant Raymond Lopez, Sergeant Patel, and PFC Gerald Stewart from D Company were killed in action. 11 more were wounded. Bob Framey and Terry Rader received Bronze Stars for their bravery. The artillery and the cavalry units also suffered many casualties during that time. After Dautiang, we went on to a multi-unit search and destroy mission called Operation Junction City. And most of the time during that, I ran the dozer pushing jungle for artillery fire zones and cleared small base camps and cleared roads. And some of our squads had to go out in the back of Chinook helicopters on rope ladders to blow landing zones to get the infantry in and get them out of there. I didn't have to do that. I was pretty fortunate. Then we went to Swan Lock and we built the base camp. And I got to kind of hurry through this because Jen said I got about 12, 15 minutes. So anyway, then Operation Port C happened and we were with the Australians there. Great bunch of guys. Then we were down the Mekong River to the Mekong Delta to a town called Ben Long. And we were sent there to build a perforated steel plank runway. When that was built, most of us would get to go home. And after the runway was built, I got to go home. I left on October 7th, arrived in California on October 8th, 1967. I flew from California to Minneapolis, took a cab to downtown Minneapolis and bought a brand new car. I drove it home, surprised my family, mom and dad and family. And a couple days after Christmas in 1967, I was back in California at Eastman Kodak Company, doing the holiday rush at Eastman Kodak Company, just like nothing happened. And that's the end of my story.
Like just like that. No, 22 months went by that quick, yeah, so. My little granddaughter Sarah was up in their 5th grade. She was a 5th grader then, I think, at the time. So,
Jerry, who did you go in with?
Bruce Hoyam from Marietta, just 2 of us, got drafted the same day.
Really?
Yeah.
And I have that on my notes. Could you explain how the draft worked?
Back then?
Yeah.
That's a good question. We just had a draft card and you were classified 1A. And
1A if you were eligible.
if you were eligible.
Okay.
And so I was 1A, and I think it went by alphabetical order because Goetsch and Hoyam, we got drafted the same day, and
Yeah.
I think they went down the alphabet, and if you happen to be a Z or a W, you got at the end.
You got at the end.
And so, but we did have a Zabachik in our unit, Zabachik, and I just found out that he passed away this past year too.
Okay.
Zabachik, but yeah, we had some Weimer, he's a good friend, but they all got drafted at the same time.
Same time. So what was most of the unit that you were with, was it mostly people that got drafted?
Yeah, I would say 80%.
Okay.
80% of us were drafted. And there were RAs in there,
Yep.
RA all the way. And so, but basically,
And what's RA, just for everyone?
Regular Army.
There you go. Okay.
and NG, National Guard.
And yep.
US is a draftee.
Okay.
Yeah, if your serial number starts with the US, after 65 years, you still remember.
Still remember. Yeah, I'd never forget that.
Yeah, right. So, but what is the question?
So then, when you after you got drafted, how long did you have before you had to leave?
Okay, I got my draft notice in California, actually,
Okay.
and when I was working in California. But I wanted to come home and visit my family, so I came back here, and we kind of got a reprieve. We were supposed to go before Christmas,
Okay.
and we were due to get inducted like in October of '65. Well, they didn't draft us, or they didn't induct us until January 2nd.
Okay.
So
And then where'd you go from? Where did they induct you at?
Sioux Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, both. There were a whole busload of us from, central Minnesota and western South Dakota or eastern South Dakota, and so, yeah, Bruce and I were the only 2 from Lackawanna County though.
And then you went to Sioux Falls. You got
Sioux
inducted.
Falls, and then from there to Port Leonard Wood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take train?
No, we got on the bus.
Okay.
Bus in Sioux Falls. Yeah.
And then you got there and started basic.
Yeah, took basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, and then we got to leave after that.
Okay, what'd you do for leave?
I was in a car wreck and got 13 stitches in my head.
I bet there's some people who were not very happy with that.
They weren't very happy. The Army had to pay for it.
What kind of car did you crash?
Did I drive in? Oh, this is kind of a story. When I got drafted, I had a new 65 Ford.
Okay.
And so when I came home on leave, I had no car. I had to sell the car.
Yep.
And so I told this story before. Jim Striggy had an old car down there.
Yep.
And so I made a deal with him. $120 for a 1964 big old four-door clunker. But
Yeah.
it ran good. And so a 30-day leave went by, and I called Jim back, and I said, I don't need the car anymore. He said, bring it back. I'll give you $100 for it. So it cost me $20 to drive it for 30 days. And
That's not bad.
no, so I always tell that story about Jim Striggy because, yeah.
That's a
so,
pretty good one.
Yeah. Then when I had my leave before I went to Vietnam,
Yep.
most of that I flew on MAPS, military air transport.
Yep.
And so I flew from Nashville to the West Coast, and then I flew to Anchorage, Alaska. I had a brother in the Air Force up there.
Oh.
So I got that in that 30-day leave before. And then I flew back down, and back then you could get real cheap air transportation.
Okay.
You know, but you could get free flights if you could match up with a MATS military air transport.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But you sat, on the side,
It is military travel.
Yeah, it was pretty rough, but it was cheap.
It was cheap. Sometimes that beats the
It was
the good seat.
Yeah, so I did get to do a little traveling with that. So
Well, that's good. Did you have any stories like basic or AT? Like what you learned out of that?
it was cold, very very cold. January in Fort Leonard Wood,
Yep.
minus 20 a lot of times.
Oh,
Yep, got very cold that winter of '66. So in this book here, this one here, it shows how cold it was, and you can just look through this because we had the ear flappers down. Oh, here. Yeah, you can see we're dressed. We're dressed for it. My picture is in there someplace, and but that's our basic training book right there. But it was cold. When you stood out in formation at 5 o'clock in the morning when it was 20 below zero, crisp, it was cold. And then they'd come along with like a credit card and check you to make sure that your face was shaved.
well, I bet that felt really great when it's frozen.
Like wire brush.
We had a platoon sergeant. His name was Sergeant Dickerson, and he was tough and mean. But I think he saved a lot of us.
Yeah.
Without him being tough and mean, we wouldn't have made it.
Hard training is good
Yeah,
teaches you stuff.
yeah. And so, but yeah, you can see there we're bundled up pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of mornings when it was minus 20. They didn't keep us out long because they knew we couldn't get frostbite or anything.
Yeah.
We had to go out and do formation, and then we come back for chow, and then we had to do PT after chow.
Mm-hmm.
After you
ate a lot of food.
Yeah, so that was fun.
That's always fun. See if they can throw up again.
Yeah,
Throw it right back
A
up.
lot of guys did.
Yeah. Teaches you not to eat very much.
How was the food?
The food was edible. We were always hungry. So
Oh, yeah, I'm
when
sure.
when I went in the Army, I think I only weighed about 145 pounds. I gained 30 pounds. I weighed 175 pounds when I got out.
Oh.
I mean, out of basic and
Yeah.
AIT. But then when I came back from Vietnam, I shrunk. I mean, I was only like 145 pounds again because of the heat and everything.
Yeah. Take it out of you.
Just sweat us off. So
What kind of stuff did you learn at AIT?
AIT, we did explosives. We did night maneuvers. We did jungle training. Basically, that's pretty much it.
Did they teach you like the heavy equipment side of it then too?
No, we didn't. We didn't get heavy equipment training. The RA guys, they were the ones that got to go to heavy equipment.
Oh, okay.
But then when I got over there, they didn't have enough operators, so I wound up being an operator anyway.
Oh, so okay.
Because I was a farm kid and I knew how to run machinery, so that's how I got on.
Some on-the-job training.
Yeah, on the job training. Never run a dozer ever, but it set me out in the jungle. What happened is the RA guy, Bob Freemy, Bronze Star Freemy, he's in my book.
Yeah.
He got a Bronze Star over there, and the other guy did too. he hit a landmine and he got a concussion. It blew the front end off that dozer when he was running.
Oh, that'd
And
take a
so
lot.
then they sent me out with a new one to take his spot. And so that was fun.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, you never want to take. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
but
good.
he had an HD16 Alice, and then the new one that came in was a D7 Cat,
Oh,
and that was a really good dozer. But I did have a close call with that one, and a 155 artillery round that didn't explode rolled off to the side.
oh,
You know, I was pushing,
Yeah.
and it just rolled off to the side, and I thought, oh, well, this is not good.
that's not what you want to see.
This is not good.
No, that's not good at all.
Yeah, so, but yeah, there were quite a few close calls, but luckily I made it back okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Once you got back from, so you went on leave after AAT. You went on leave. Where did you leave the States from? First you would have joined your unit.
We left as a unit from Fort Campbell, Kentucky. We all, the 27th Combat Engineer Battalion, they were deployed all as a unit. And
Okay.
so there were 4 companies.
So after AAT, you went.
A, B, C, D, and headquarters. And C company went ahead 30 days ahead.
Okay.
And then the rest of us went on the ship, but all of our equipment went on a train, loaded on a train and went to Oakland and went on a ship there. And then we went on a plane, all of us flew to Oakland.
Okay.
And then we got on the USS Simon Buckner. And then we took that 3-week cruise.
The slow boat to.
Yeah, the slow boat to China.
How was that?
It was rough. It was stinky. It was nasty. 6,000 guys on that thing.
Is that like you see in pictures, or just stacked people?
High. 6 high. You had to climb up, and there was just that much room, and you just slid in. It was 6 high.
So then, what did you do
And if
during?
one guy passed gas on one end, you could smell on the other. Yeah, and if they got sick, it was right over the side.
Right. Oh, that'd be
Not
miserable.
fun. So you wanted to get on the top one. You didn't want to be on the bottom.
What'd you do during the day? Like, could you go up on top of the deck
Well,
at some certain times?
When the seas weren't rough, then we could go up there, but it was rough most of the time. We went through like a typhoon, and the front end of the boat would come out of the water, and then it would smash down, and the back end would come out of the water, and that's how come everybody got so sick. It was really rough, 24 hours like that.
Oh.
And so one of the things that happened is when they let us up on top, there were still these big swells, and so the boat was going up and down like that. So some of the guys got up there, they were doing PT,
Yep.
and they would jump just as the ship was coming down, and they'd be up in the air 6-7 feet because the ship was falling down underneath it. Well, that got put to a stop real
I
quick.
bet it did. That's a good way to hurt
But
yourself.
it was quite an experience because it wasn't really a real big ship, but so each one of the waves, it really amplified the motion. So
Yeah. I bet you were glad to get off in Guam. Or did they let you off in Guam when you got
they
there?
didn't. The Marines got to get off in Guam, but the Army guys didn't get off. And I don't understand that, but they did. The Marines got off. But I think there was a Marine base there. I think that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Navy and the Marines are together,
Yup.
So I think that's why they wouldn't let us off. And there was some friction.
I imagine that they.
Yeah, there was some friction there. There was a lot of pent up anxiety going on, and
Yep.
so a couple guys got wound up in the brig. But yeah, it was a lot of anticipation. We didn't know what the heck was going to happen when we got there.
So was the first time you got off the ship then in Saigon?
It was south of Saigon. It was trying to remember. We talked about this. I talked with my buddies about it, and it was south of there someplace.
Okay.
It wasn't in Saigon. The first stop was in Da Nang, and they left the Marines off up there, and then they came south and let us guys off. So they got us. They put us in those landing craft utilities.
Yep.
And then they took us to shore on those and dropped the things on. We had our weapons and everything, but no bullets. And I thought, this is not a good thing. They wouldn't let us have it. No, this is safe here. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't time yet.
This is safe, yeah. So
there was no place for the ship to, like, there was no docks then
no,
that you had to.
no, it was out in the middle of the water.
So did you have to go down cargo nets then?
Yeah, we went down those the rope things.
Yeah,
we
that
went
must
down
be an
that.
experience.
Just like you see in World War II.
Yeah.
Same thing, went right into those things, and nobody fell. Pretty good.
That is pretty good.
Yeah. So, and we had our packs on, so we had, weapons flung over.
Yeah.
M14, they're pretty heavy.
And then after not moving for 3 weeks.
Well, no, we did PT every day. I
Okay.
mean, when it wasn't too rough,
Yep.
so we were still in shape, yeah. Yeah. So.
Wow.
But then 3 weeks we were kind of in a staging area,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a lot of anxiety because we didn't know what was going to happen, where we were going, and then that's when we wound up, like my little story said there, we wound up going to Daotiang and the Michelin rubber plantation. That was our first assignment,
Okay.
and so all hell broke loose right away. Right away as soon as we got there.
So what kind of stuff did you get more equipment and stuff when you sat in the staging area for the first 3 weeks?
Most of our equipment was already at that staging area.
Oh,
And
so
so
you
we
met
just-
it there.
Yeah, we met up there with C Company. The C Company was there ahead of us a month ahead.
Okay.
And they unloaded all the equipment and got a staging area set up, and it was a safe area. There wasn't really any issue there. So we thought,
So what year was that then?
66, September of 66,
66.
October, like the last few days of September, first few days of October.
What's the weather like then?
At that point right there, it wasn't too bad, but then it got hot and wet and rainy, and once we got to Daotiang, it just rained, and it was hot and humid, and then of course later, I think in June, I think it got really hot and dry
Mm-hmm.
when we were on that operation. It got really hot. Some of the pictures in there show that one of the dozer operators just covered with that red clay.
Oh yeah, I bet that would be
Yeah,
miserable.
it just sticks to you. Well, you got kind of like caked on you, you'd sweat, and
Yep.
that stuff would stick to you, and
The dust would
you kind
blow.
of look like a pig by the time you, yeah, really.
suppose,
it's
yeah.
Like crusted dirt on you by the time you come in, and so a lot of times no water. We had a hard time getting water to take a shower in. So
Yeah, I would imagine it'd be hard just getting like you'd have to drink a lot of water just to stay ahead of that.
yeah, and then they had 2 salt pills, and a malaria tablet, something else. I can't remember what it was, but I remember we had to take 2 salt pills and a malaria tablet
Every day.
every day. Yeah, so.
Yeah. That did many people end up getting malaria still?
I don't know of anybody that did. I think
Okay.
those pills must have solved it, but we got, like the undersides of my arms were just like leather from when mosquitoes biting them,
Just constant.
Yeah, and then you had this little green bottle that you had up in your helmet thing,
Yep.
and you squirt that on and rub it all over you, and
Did it help at all?
I don't know.
Make you feel good?
Numb to the whole thing,
Yeah.
Your whole body seemed to get numb. You just forgot about being miserable. You just,
After so long.
you just forgot about being miserable. But one thing that I made myself a promise when I came home, I would never sleep on the ground again, ever. I never have. Never
Yeah.
sleep on the ground.
Yeah. Camping wouldn't be much fun after that.
No, I wouldn't do it.
No. Not absolutely not.
I said I wouldn't be tired or hungry or dirty again. And I've tried not to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good goal.
Yeah. But yeah, it was hot and muddy and dirty and ugly. Yeah. Or dusty and ugly.
So then, from the staging area, you went to the Michelin
Yes.
rubber plant.
Yep.
So, is there pictures of that?
Say it again.
Do you have pictures of that?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah, there's a lot of them in there. Okay, so if you open this book up, I think Jim's got a lot of those pictures.
Okay.
Because that's where we lost our guys. Our first 3 guys got killed there.
Here, let's just start going through
Yeah.
these pictures. Okay, we'll put it up on the screen, and then. So the Michelin plant. So I don't like. I have rubber trees. Are they pretty tall? Are they like if you say
They're
a
all
rubber
planted
plant?
in rows.
Yeah.
The French planted them when they were there.
Okay.
And so yeah, this is actually an Operation Junction City.
Which was the second place you went?
This is right after Daotiang,
Okay.
and I think in the beginning of, let's see, one of these other books. You might find a truck that's blowing up.
Yep.
In the front part. Okay, that will be in Daotiang.
That one?
Yeah, that happened in Daotiang on that road coming in.
Is that the one that Wardlow was driving?
No, that one, I've got pictures of it, but they're not in here right now.
Okay.
And I could never find a picture of that, and it's strange. I thought it was maybe like a bad dream, that it maybe didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know how that could be?
Yeah.
Yep. And so I had 4 of my buddies, and I talked to them about it. And 3 of them, they didn't remember anything about it. But the 4th one, he says, yeah, we went out there and we had to fill that hole up, and we hauled that truck back in again. And so that confirmed that, yeah,
It did happen.
And so, sometimes when you when things get blocked out,
Yep.
you wonder, did it really happen or didn't it? Because Wardle died, so I couldn't talk to him about it.
Okay.
And
Later on.
later on, he died, yeah.
Yep.
And so, but anyway, George Harris, he's from Erie, Pennsylvania, and he sent me the pictures of that truck. So
Okay.
I do have.
You do
pictures
have
of that
so
truck, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird how your mind blocks stuff out.
Yeah, because
Like
there's a section of that incident. It's gone. It's never come back. I've never been able to pull it up. I tried very hard to figure out what happened right after that, up until we went to that Black Mountain and then come back into the base camp. Gone.
So this would be the story that when you dropped at the race paddy,
Say that again.
the where the truck got blown up.
Yeah,
that was
raised
when
bedded on both sides.
Yep.
And there were no doubt Viet Cong on both sides of the road working in the field.
Yep.
And their MO, so to speak, is they block the little road off, and then they attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't having none of that. We just kept on going, and so they didn't get us. But I really don't. That's why I can't remember what happened after that, because we had two Jeeps with M60s. That's the only security we had for those 5 trucks, and so I wanted to find out, what happened with those guys. But
yeah,
that would have been an MP brigade or somebody, and I couldn't find out what happened.
they were escorting you.
They were escorting us. Yeah.
How wide of roads were they? Like, are you looking at
Township Road here, only a little narrower?
so
with a crown on it. So
with water on both sides?
With water on both sides, yeah. So if it was wet and raining, you didn't want to get out. You wanted to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the dozer. When we were on our way to Daotiang,
Mm-hmm.
there were people coming, and he got over and he just slid right off. And, but just little tiny roads, most of them.
So it's not like you could maneuver around. They knew exactly where you were going to go. Like you couldn't go around things.
It would have been very difficult to. But Wardlow had the presence of mind just to pull that, because he had 6-wheel drive, of course. The front wheels were churning, the back ones were blown off.
Yep.
But the front wheels were pulling him, so he got it out of the way so I could get around him.
Okay.
And then he jumped into me, and away we went.
And you just left the vehicle for the time being.
Set, yeah. And so, but they would always come back and retrieve all that stuff, because the Viet Cong would just take them all apart and use them for shrapnel.
Oh yeah.
That they had to get them out of there.
Because they would just scavenge everything.
Yeah, whatever they could get, they would use for shrapnel. Make a homemade bomb and put them in the road
Or something, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that was one of the incidents that happened.
So so going back a little bit at Michelin.
Yeah.
At the Michelin, that's when you got mortared a lot.
Yes, and that's what I was going to elaborate on.
Yeah, let's see.
So
here.
So I don't know if you
can you find what it would kind of look like there, and then we'll show
the
everybody.
big book will probably have it.
Okay.
I think that one might have it. Yeah. So all these vehicles that are damaged, blown up.
Yep.
That all happened. That's 30, 35, 40 days at Daotiang. They were either coming in or going out of that road. And so in that one. Okay, where are we here? This is when we first got here. This picture right here.
Okay.
That's me right there. And I still was heavy there. I weighed 175 there. But let's see if I can find. But that's the tents there.
That's a lot. I mean, getting mortared right.
This is Operation Junction City. That's where we went in right there.
Okay.
That's when we went out there. And okay. So this is going into Junction City there. That's Howard Gate. That's one of my good buddies right there. And it's just, that was a pretty dangerous situation we were going into there.
That's not it. That
Oh, back it up a little bit there. Okay, so Kenny Wozniak, he's the first one that got a truck blown up going into that road. He had a lowboy. And that's Howard Gates right next to him, and that's Howard in the back of the truck there. And Howard, I got to speak with Howard a couple of years ago, and unfortunately he just passed away too. So, like, is that him with the cigarette in his mouth? Yeah, he said, I hate that picture. I talked to him about it. I sent him that picture.
yeah.
I sent it to him. But you could see he was on the edge. He was ready for action there. So back to your question about Dao Tiang. And
So you got mortared the first night you were
the
there.
very first night.
So the first time you were out of like the safe area of
Yeah,
the
first
rear,
night.
the first
We'd
night.
been in Vietnam 3 weeks. We were in the staging area, safe there.
Yep.
Went to Dao Tiang, the very first night we got mortared. And we kept getting mortared and mortared and mortared every night for I don't know how long. That first night, 110 mortar rounds came in.
How big of an area was your? Did you
Well, it
get
was
that
like
first night?
circle the wagons type
Yeah,
thing, you know?
that's what I mean. It wasn't very big.
No, it wasn't
Like
very
a
big.
football field?
One of the low boys had 17 flat tires in the morning, you know, from two hits, one on one side, one on the other. And
man.
the one that the shrapnel went through my mosquito net, and that mortar round was about 30 feet away, and we could tell because there's a little pock mark where they hit, and then the ground is completely clean. It just wipes everything out, and it kind of goes like that, you know.
And you had dug foxholes with that right when you got there.
I was in the tent.
Oh,
I was in the tent in the bunk with the mosquito netting down.
okay. So you were
At
above
that
ground.
point, yeah, because somebody else was supposed to be on guard duty, you know, on the perimeter.
Yep.
So we were in the tent, 12 of us, because there was supposed to be another squad that was manning the foxholes. Okay, so we didn't even have time to put sandbags up. You know, normally you'd have sandbags up and around, but we didn't have time for that. So we just hit the ground. Sergeant Taylor, you know, shouting orders, got us out of there, got us to the perimeter, got us in the foxholes. And so I'd say he saved us.
Yeah.
You know, and because the tent next to us, right across, my good friend Michael Leininger, he was in that tent, and my good friend Larry Weimer, and Larry Weimer got a piece of shrapnel in his forehead, and then there were, out of 110 rounds came in, only 3 wounded that night. Ooh, that's like a miracle.
That is a miracle.
But after that, we weren't so lucky, because then they zeroed in, they hit one tent direct, and there was 12 guys in there, and 7 of them got wounded. I don't know how many got killed. They were from a different unit. And then the next 2 or 3 nights, the foxhole just down from us, direct hit right in the foxhole, and 2 guys killed right there. And then out on the road, clearing landmines, we lost Gerald Stewart, and 3 guys got wounded there. And so out of 120, when we were there, 22 wounded and 3 killed.
And this was like right when you started that.
Most of it happened in the first 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
So.
And then, but in the first couple of weeks with all the mortar rounds.
About a month, about 30 days.
That's a lot.
So one of the things they did, we had an artillery battery from the 4th Division, 3rd Brigade, and they got a radar detector in that was supposed to be able to direct the fire where the mortars were coming from.
Yep.
Well, the 4th mortar round come in and wiped that one out.
Oh.
Yeah, they were right on the money. You know, they knew exactly where that screen was, and they got it on the 4th round. So
this never helped you.
So they just fired all night long. But we had a lot of support. Like F-105s were coming in the daytime, and they were dropping stuff on the perimeter. You could see the guys in the plane. They would come over so low, and so there was a lot of things going on. Well, the reason we were there was to build a runway to bring supplies in, because that road was so dangerous. So as soon as we got that runway built, the first plane that came in, it was a C-119 Caribou, C-119 Caribou, two engines, not a great big plane. He shot it down right on the landing. Take a break, Bob?
So we'll cut. So we'll get back. We'll cut back to this stuff. So this is This is what you look like after. This isn't you. This is Bob. But after running, after being out in the red dirt.
And the red, we call it laterite, and so just red clay with little rocks in it. That's what we made the runway out of. But it packed real good. So
Okay.
that's why they.
Not like the dirt down in Oklahoma.
It is just like it. I think it's all got iron in it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's at the right parallel with Oklahoma. And once you get down there,
So how did you keep your weapons working in that kind of dust?
That's a really good. I'm glad you asked that. So after running the dozer all day, I had a Stevens 12 gauge pump shotgun that I carried on the, and mainly it was for shooting snakes.
Oh,
The snakes would fall out of the trees and stuff.
that sounds
But my
terrible.
M14, when I carried that in there, I put diesel fuel on that. I just hold it off with diesel fuel. Just hold it off and brushed it off, and
It was good to go again.
yeah, as long as the platoon sergeant didn't catch me, that's all I did. But it worked fine. It was a good lubricant.
Yeah.
It kept it from getting rusty, and but you know, every so often I make sure it's still fired. But that's,
Yep.
yeah. So that was a challenge to keep.
I bet it was a challenge to keep clean.
Yeah.
What type of snakes?
What's that?
What type of snakes are out there?
Oh, I don't know. Big ugly ones.
Like poisonous
They were
ones
big-
then?
Well, they'd fall out of the trees. But the worst thing was the ants. They'd have these nests of ants up there
Yep. In the trees?
in the trees. Yeah, they were like a, you know. And if you hit one of them and it come down, one of them landed right on my helmet. I had ants all over me. I just had to do a striptease out there to get all the
Fire
ants.
ants or-
Yeah, they were biting the heck out of me.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
It was. But that's the only time I ever really had an issue. And some snakes, but
Yep.
no snakes ever fell on me.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was a hazardous.
That sounds, yeah. So when you were pushed, would you push all the trees and everything?
Well, we tried to, and some of the big trees, though, the biggest tree that I had to push, I had to cut behind it because it was so big, and then I had to build a ramp up to start it pushing over. Well, then when you get at the end of the ramp, you can only go so far because if you go over, you're going to
Oh, yeah.
go down. So I got the tree starting to go down, and then I cut along it on the side again. Just kept cutting, and finally it fell over. But they didn't want those big trees, of course. Snipers up in the big trees.
Yep. So what'd you do with all these tree piles? Just burn them eventually, or?
Push windrows up. Let's say the road is going this way,
Yep.
and we put the windrows this way,
Okay.
and then we push them back, and so push them in, and then they burn them.
They burned them.
So, and of course the leaves are all gone. So what do you suppose caused that?
Yeah.
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange. I was gonna say nothing
There
good.
were no leaves on those trees anymore when I got there.
So they had already.
They already sprayed it by the time I got there.
Okay.
And so we thinking about this, you know, all that spray is in the dirt and the dust, and we're all covered with it. So
Yeah.
no wonder that a lot of guys really got sick from it. So far I've got some skin cancer, but I haven't gotten real sick yet from it.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So yeah, knock on wood. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that have, you know, have suffered
Yeah.
from that stuff. So, but back to Daotiang and the mortars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're getting the runway built, and during this time the runway getting built, mortars keep coming in. They don't want us there. And Bob Trimmy and Terry Rader, they sent rockets in, and they brought in these big bladders of diesel fuel
Okay.
and stuff with the Chinook helicopters.
Yep.
And so they hit them with rockets, and one of them caught on fire. And so in order to save the other ones, this is the middle of the night now, and there's fire going, and
Yeah.
Trimmy and Raider are out there pushing a berm up around the other one so that diesel fuel don't get it, and their tracks caught on fire. So one pushed dirt on the other one,
Push the dirt on the tracks of
dirt
the
on
other.
the tracks of the dozer to put the fire out on the dozer, and then the other one did the same thing
Yep.
back again. So they both got bronze stars for that brave.
Oh wow!
And we were all watching them. We could see the mortars coming in. We could see the rockets coming in.
And they were just kept going.
They were oblivious to it. They didn't even know they were coming in. They said, we didn't see them. We were worried about the fire. You know, they didn't hear or see anything.
Oh wow!
So
It's weird how you can shut that stuff out too.
What's that?
It's weird you can shut that stuff out too
right.
after a while or whatever it is.
Yeah. So, so then, we endured all of the rockets and the mortars and all this stuff when we get the runway done. And the first plane that comes in is the Caribou.
Yep.
And they shot it down right on the runway when it was landing. They had a fighter trapped there with a 50 caliber machine gun in there.
Yeah.
And that first one, they shot it down. Well, there was a row of them coming. And so they immediately got those guys and then took the dozer and pushed that plane off the road,
Yep.
off the runway. And then they come in because they were bringing in artillery rounds and mortars and
So they just kept
food
coming, yeah.
and whatever we needed, you know. And so from that point on, that was the end of their heyday. I mean, then after we got that runway built, then everybody and everything started coming in.
And then it got safer after
It was
that.
safer after that, yeah. Yeah, because all those supplies and everything else was coming in and
When you were building that, did they send in more like a company of infantry to after a
the
while?
4th Division, 3rd Brigade sent, they had a unit of artillery. And I don't remember seeing any infantry, but the 11th Armored Cavalry was there and they came in. But that's one of the APCs, the Armored Personnel Carriers that
Yep.
got blown up that I hauled out. And so we were attached to the 11th Armored Cavalry at that point afterwards.
Okay.
And so we built their base camp. It's called Black Horse Base Camp. And so they pretty much performed the security around the perimeter.
So once after a while, you didn't have to worry about the security.
Well,
As
yeah.
much you did, but I
Yeah.
mean, there was other people there too.
Yeah, right.
So you could
Yeah,
focus on the
we could
runway.
work.
Yeah.
To start with, we were doing guard duty plus working.
That seems like it would be really
2
hard.
hours on, 2 hours off at night in the foxhole, and then work all day long. It was terrible.
I bet.
Yeah, we were just like really totally worn out after about 3 weeks of it.
Yeah. Plus getting mortared
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah, right. Well, 2 weeks or 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and then up in the morning and do your work, do your job.
That would be a long
So,
3 weeks.
Yeah. So
And then the planes, was that the planes, like the jets that came in to around the perimeter?
Yeah, they were bombing the DC that were there. That was the first 2 weeks.
The first 2
They were
weeks.
there every day. Every day they were flying. And I have a book about some of the infantry that was out there. And
Mhm.
it wasn't a unit that I was familiar with, but it happened at the same time. And we know that there was infantry out there, but we didn't know who they were.
Okay.
And so, but it was like it was a light infantry brigade that was out there in front of us.
Oh, and-
Yeah, chasing. They're actually chasing the VC. They were
okay.
trying to chase them down, and so. But that was a big deal for them. They ran out of water out there, and they couldn't get water into them.
Oh, that would be
Yeah,
bad.
there was no way to get it to them, and a lot of the guys really suffered because of that. So, but we did have water where we were.
Did with fresh water, or did they trucked it in?
We had a water purification truck,
Okay.
and so I don't know where the water came from, but they purified the water and it tasted like crap, but it
Yeah,
was
the
wet.
rice paddies.
It was wet.
It was wet, and yeah, it did the job.
Yeah, and we didn't get sick from drinking it, so, but yeah, it tasted really bad. But we did drink right out of rice paddies. We just put the pills in them
Mm-hmm.
in our canteen. Just dip it in there, put the pill in there, shake it up,
And didn't get sick from that.
and it just tasted bad.
Oh, I bet it did. The rice patty probably tasted bad. On top of the pill, probably was
kill all the
terrible.
bacteria and
Yeah.
everything that was in there. So, but so then one of the other things that happened that might be of interest is one of these armored personnel carriers got blown up, and I had the lowboy,
Mhm.
and they wanted to get that back to where the parts depot was, back where our staging area was, 80 miles away, back towards Saginaw. So I got in a convoy, went down there thinking, oh, this is cool. So I get to sleep in a barracks
Yeah.
after sleeping on the ground for 3-4 weeks. And I unload the armored personnel carrier, and I go to the barracks, and about 12 o'clock at night, I think the worst hailstorm ever, thunderstorm, and it's not. It blew up the ammo dump. And so all that shrapnel was falling down on the metal roof on this place where the transit barracks.
Yep.
It was transit barracks.
And that's what sounded like hail was all the shrapnel
Yeah, it was
coming
shrapnel
down.
coming down, and of course all the artillery rounds that were going off. So previously, when we got there, they showed us where we're supposed to go in case there was an attack. Well, we
Yeah.
didn't.
Didn't really pay
Supposed to be
attention.
safe. We didn't even think about it. But there's a big trench, and I had my truck parked there, and I had a Super 8 movie camera in the tack box on my truck
Okay.
because you learn real fast. You don't have stuff at the end of your bunk when you're out because somebody's going to steal it. You know?
Yep.
so all this stuff is going off, and it's like the biggest fireworks ever. And there's shrapnel falling down. It's not hurting us, but it's falling down on us
Yep.
from up above. So I crawl over to my truck, and I think, do I want to stand up or don't I? You know, because there's shrapnel flying everywhere. And so I wanted to get this on movies, and I do have it.
Oh,
I've got it in the box right here.
we'll have to.
See if you can figure out how to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it shows right on there. So I get back and I'm taking movies, and an officer comes by and he says, "Soldier, put that camera away and get down in the bunker and report to me in the morning." I didn't. Needless to say, I did not report to him.
I bet you did. Yeah, the guy you're looking for.
So the next morning, the artillery shells and everything else are still going off, and the convoy is heading out.
Yep.
And I'm thinking it's safer for me to get out of here. So
Stay.
I get on the convoy and I go back up to Dao Tiang. Get in the convoy and go back up to Dao Tiang, and I started telling about it. And we don't want to hear about it. We have too much going on here. And so unfortunately, that was the day that Gerald Stewart got killed. And so he had stepped on a mine, and then 2 other guys got wounded, and it was a really sad day for our guys, you know.
Well, I
And
bet.
so what happened to me was insignificant.
Yeah, it just got brushed.
Yeah. So didn't think about it or talk about it. But then when that movie film came back, I had a Super 8 projector over there.
Yep.
With me. And so I showed the guys, you know, what it looked like, and oh man.
Yeah.
So
So were they patrolling that they stepped on a landmine or?
well, Larry Weimer, my good friend from Edmond, Oklahoma, he was there that day, and he said that he jumped out of a truck right on a mine.
It's just a dumb luck.
Yeah.
Just bad luck.
Just bad luck, and the other guys happened to be there. But their mission is they were out to clear the mines. That was their job, is to go out with the mine detectors and clear them.
Okay.
And my good friend from Minneapolis, Michael Leininger, he was a sergeant. He was a squad leader, and that was part of his job, was to go, you know, and do that every day. And so he couldn't shake it off. And he upside to Wardlow's, we'll get off track a little bit here, but I searched for him quite a bit, and I could never find him.
In the Wardlow's was your battle buddy.
Wardlow was my foxhole buddy.
Foxhole buddy.
Yeah, he was my foxhole buddy, and he's the one that was in the truck that got blown up in front of me. So we did a lot of things together for a long time.
Yep.
And so I tried to find him, but he had gotten a divorce, so I could never track him down by using the methods that they had. Well, I found him by going through findagrave.com is how I found him.
What year was that when you were trying to look for him? How
in the 90s.
In the 90s? Okay.
Yeah, I started looking in the 90s, you know, because I knew he was close by.
Yep.
And then Michael Leininger, my good friend, we kept in touch, and we'd drive back and forth and see each other. And actually, Jennifer and my family went to visit his family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in the cities afterwards, you know.
Yep.
And so he had a good family and a good life, though. I mean, it wasn't like things fell apart for him, but he just couldn't leave the drinking alone. He had to drink to cover it up. But anyway, I got to meet Wardlow's family because findagrave.com, because I found out he had two children.
Okay.
And I tracked him down through Vietnam Veterans of America. They did the service for him.
Yep.
And so I drove down there and I visited the family, and I took my albums and showed his grandkids and talked to his grandkids about him. And
so where did you find his family?
Davenport.
Okay.
Davenport. He's buried in right across the river in Rock Island National Cemetery. And so I got to visit his grave. I got some pictures of that too. So
Can we see?
Yeah. I guess they would be in that book, but I'm thinking they are.
Okay.
But I should have been a little more prepared.
Oh no, this is fine.
Yeah.
The
But anyway, they were, well, the son, he texts me every Memorial Day and or calls me, and Veterans Day, and it's kind of like having a second family. Pretty cool.
yeah. That must have felt good to find him.
Because Denny wasn't there to tell him, and so I can see in his grandchildren a little bit of him. He was pretty hyper, and he has one granddaughter that's a lot like he was. You know, they did an article about it in the Quad City Times, and And so I had that in one of these books, but they had an article about us going over there and about Larry Weimer, the three of us in the staging area. And
How did Quad City how did that newspaper find out about you looking for him?
let's see, how did that? Oh, the Sun put it in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so then she called me, the editor called me
Yep.
and asked me if I'd like to do an interview about that and if I had any pictures. And so that's how it all transpired, is because the Sun put a thank you in there.
I bet that meant a lot to the family. I bet that was a.
And we went out, we had pizza, and all the family was there, and his he was divorced, but his ex-wife was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to talk to her, and so that was pretty cool, you know. And especially the grandchildren and the daughter and the son too. So,
Do you think that helped you too?
oh yeah, for sure, it did.
Those are the good things to hear.
Little closure,
Yeah, absolutely.
little closure there. Yeah, yeah, just to see, okay, everything's cool there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. But they really didn't have any idea what he went through over there. He never talked about that truck being blown up. He didn't talk about any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know about it, but I had the pictures, and I said, no, this is what happened. I was there, you know. So
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing you found him. And I think the internet makes it a lot. Like without the internet,
that,
you would
I
never.
wouldn't have been able to find him without that. So, and then without the help of the, let's see, the veteran service officer in, let's see, the Vietnam Veterans of America referred me to him,
Mhm.
and he's the one that within 2 hours he had his son calling me back. Once I got to him,
Yep.
he said, I know the family. He said, I'll get a message to him, and 2 hours later his son called me.
Well, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so.
That is amazing. So going back to Vietnam, you finished up the airstrip, and then the plane started landing.
Yes.
The first plane got shot down.
Yes.
So then did it crash land or did it?
Well, yeah, the motors, it got the motor on one side,
Okay.
and I don't know if it got the pilot or what happened, but anyway, it was disabled.
It was disabled.
And so it couldn't move, so they pushed it out of the way, and the other ones were circling. And on the internet, there's videos of, and they may be Air Force videos or they may be Army videos, but of that LZ Dao Tiang where these guys are coming in and bringing in stuff. And
What you
that
built.
was, to those guys, that was the big deal. You know, they were all pumped up because they're going into this combat
Yeah.
zone. You know, they'd never been in anything before. And
Yes,
they knew-
now.
they knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, but they were pretty pumped up about it.
And as soon as you got the planes landed, that pretty much was your signal to leave.
Well, then there was so much stuff coming in that I think the DC just ran.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they would hit and run. That was their MO. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
They weren't going to stay there and
They
fight.
weren't going to die there. They were going to fight another day. That's what helped them. I mean, they just hit and run.
So after that, then where was your next? Where'd you go next?
That was Operation Junction City, and that was it was in the Iron Triangle. It was in Dao Tiang and Tainan province.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of pictures in there. You'll see the jungle scenes where the one where Howard Gates is in the back of the truck, and almost all of those are in the Iron Triangle, and that's in Operation Junction City. So that was what
So what was your mission in Junction City then?
search and destroy.
And the engineers are
Search and destroy. That was what the whole thing was about. And Westmoreland, this is weird. Westmoreland was in charge of everything over there. And Westmoreland came right in our little road, right in front of our tent, on his Jeep, checking things out.
really.
He was right there. I got to see him. He was only 20, 30 feet away.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and of course in the combat zone, you don't salute, you don't even make a recognition of anything. But
Yeah.
and it's the strangest thing that he had an entertainer with him. She was an older entertainer, and she entertained us when we were in Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Oh.
And then she wound up coming over there with the USO,
Yep.
the USO, and strangest thing, why she would come out there and, you know, when we're getting mortared and, you know, it's
Yeah.
very dangerous, but she would come right out with him.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, reading about what Westmoreland's plan was, it was search and destroy and find them. And if you couldn't find them, you dug them out. And so that's basically what we did. We just pushed all the jungle out and just, you know, dug them out.
And were you with the infantry at that point?
There was infantry and
Everybody.
Yeah. There was a lot of times, there was a couple of times when I was pretty scared over there. And one of them was one night I had to go and push out an area for an infantry, I don't know, company or whatever they were.
Yep.
Not very many of them. And so I had to stay with them overnight. And then, of course, there was an attack that night. Well, when I did that, I'd make sure I had a big bunker. So I dug a big hole with the dozer.
I suppose you didn't have to dig foxhole by hand when you had a dozer.
No little hole for me. I dug a big one. And then they had culverts,
Yep.
half culverts. So you just put one of those half culverts in the hole and you push dirt over the top of it. And then you sandbag the front of it so that, you know, you had a bunker instantly.
Oh,
within 30 minutes, you could build a really good bunker.
Yep.
And so, but then, okay, so I'm in the bunker, and I'm the only one from the combat engineering, and the rest of them are all out there in the perimeter, and all this stuff's happening, and I'm in the, you know, in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not liking this. I said, how do you know who's coming?
Yeah.
You know, and I wouldn't dare shoot unless they were right on me, because I might have been one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
How would you know? So that was one night where I was pretty scared about it.
I bet.
No deal. Yeah. Otherwise, I was never really scared. But that pretty much scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And then there was another time similar to that. But
Nights are terrible. I'm assuming that
yeah,
we can't
we
see
didn't have
who's
any
who.
night vision or anything.
Yeah.
Like that. You know, it was, you know, well, they had flares that would go up, but you know, the ones that with the little
With parachutes.
parachute on it,
Yep.
they'd come down, but they would kind of fizzle out, and there would be a lot of shadows, and so pretty.
That doesn't make it easy to see.
Yeah, pretty difficult to see anything there. So, but so anyway, we survived that, and then after that there was Operation Attleboro. That was just right at the end of, or right before Junction City, and that was when Dao Jiang was. That was Attleboro was part of Dao Jiang movement, and then Junction City, and then Junction City 2. And then there was another one called Port C, which I got involved in. And this one was kind of the upside of my whole deal over there. They sent me out to be with the Australians because they didn't have a dozer.
Oh.
And so I got sent about 80, 90 miles south of Saigon. And so when I got to Saigon, I don't remember if I delivered something to the port or not. But anyway, an officer come out and he says, I want you to haul something down to the Australians, and he said, I'll meet you down there. And so it wound up to be 13 pallets of beer.
Oh, that is an upside.
13 pallets of beer. And so, and he said, you make sure that, don't release this to anybody but me. He said, I'm flying down there, and when I get there, I'll sign for it. And so all the way down there, they must have known that beer was coming, because every officer along the way said, I wanted that beer. You know, sorry, sir, I have orders. This has got to go to this colonel right here. And so I get down there, and the Aussies, I'm the most popular Yank in the bunch.
Oh, I bet everyone's just been waiting for you.
Foster's Lager, half of it was Foster's Lager, Australian beer.
Yeah.
And then the others was Ballantine. It was some beer from East Coast in New Jersey. It wasn't very good beer, but they drank it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was with them for about 30 days, and it was fun.
I bet. So then what were you, did you bring your dozer? You're like a lowboy and a
I brought my
dozer?
lowboy down, and the reason I brought it, I was supposed to haul their dozer for them.
Yep.
Well, I come and looked at this dozer, and it's big as a house. It's a TD-25 dozer. It's a huge dozer. I said, I can't haul that dozer on this trailer. It'll just smash it flat.
Yep.
So they said, well, we have some smaller ones. So then that's what I did, is wherever they needed to go with the dozer, I hauled it for them.
Okay.
And but I got to drink a lot of beer.
A lot of beer. That is an upside.
Yeah, they pretty much let me have all the beer I wanted. So that was,
They needed the lowboy, and
yeah.
so did you run dozer for him then, or?
No, well, just
A little bit.
just for fun.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do it, but just for fun, because I wanted to run. They had the old clutch ones. It wasn't a hydro. You
Okay.
had to put the clutch in and put it in gear, and then let the clutch out, and so
Oh.
it was pretty difficult to drive compared to the ones we had.
I bet that takes for a long. That's a lot of
Well,
like
it was-
movement.
It was a lot of coordinating, to get it right, You had
Yeah.
you have to have all the levers and clutches and everything going just right. But with ours, it was real easy. You just had two pedals and a stick, and that was it.
That was it.
But so then after that, then I came back and the guys were getting ready to move, and we're going to the Mekong Delta.
So did you tell all the guys you'd been with the Australians for 30 days drinking beer?
I didn't dare. They would probably beat the crap out of me. They probably would have beat the crap out of me. Yeah, that good duty. But there was a couple of things that happened on the way down there, but it wasn't anything compared to what we had been going through. So anyway, then when I got back from that, then everybody was back at Black Horse Base Camp. That's 11th Armored Cavalry.
Okay.
Well, I was down there. They were busy building that. And so from that point, they got that done. And so then they wanted us to build a runway in the Mekong Delta. So we had to load all of our equipment up on these landing craft utilities, big ones where you could put dozers and everything on them.
So did they have ramps that came
They had
down?
big ramps, and they just come up to the edge of the Mekong River and drop the ramps down. And so, unfortunately, on the way down, the throw-up bearing went out of my truck. Well, the truck will still go, but you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Clutch it and it won't stop. So I had a dozer on there, and of course, I didn't want to get left behind, so I told the guy behind me, "You just give me a push. If we stop, you give me a push, and we'll start it."
Yep.
And so, but then when it come time to get on the landing crafts, I had one shot. I could get it in reverse, and one shot. I couldn't make it because you had to kind of back around the corner.
Yeah.
So then they unhooked me, and I had to stay with a what they call it, a motor pool.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to put a clutch in, so they left me on the banks of the Mekong River for 3 days.
Oh no.
And then they came back and got me later, and they got the guys down to Bin Long and got unloaded, and then 3 days later I got down there. So,
Okay.
but yeah, everything that we had went on those LCUs and went down there.
And then did you rode on the LCUs too? Did you just ride in your trucks or did?
Yeah, we just rode, in
Just
the
had a seat?
LCUs. There's some pictures of it in here, someplace. I think maybe I can find some in this one too. So one of the guys, and we just found out that he passed away not too long ago. This is a little bit off color, but his girlfriend sent him a pair of red panties, and he had them on a flagpole.
That sounds like a soldier thing to do.
That was the highlight of our trip to the Mekong Delta.
And then you're building runways again?
Yeah, this time, now this runway was a perforated steel plank runway.
Okay. What's
And because it was on a race paddy, and so in order to stabilize that ground down there, they put sand and concrete. First, they leveled it off and they packed it, and then they put sand down,
okay?
and then they rolled it smooth with a road grader and rolled it smooth, and so meanwhile, two big boxers came in while this was happening. They came from North Dakota, from Towner, North Dakota, and then the platoon sergeant says, "Are there any farm boys in here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a farm boy." So well, you're going to help put this thing together, and it was a big Towner disc, and they used the Towner disc to mix the cement and the sand together.
Well, so they just put the powdered cement,
Yeah,
just on top.
Yeah, bags and bags and bags of it. They come down on barges, just laid them out, and man, those guys they work so hard doing that. Because just imagine 94-pound bags of concrete on a big runway. And there's a picture of that runway in there someplace if you can see it.
That would be insane. I mean, a bag of cement isn't going to go very far on a runway.
No, there's thousands and thousands of bags of
That would have been miserable.
cement out there.
And then they put grates over the top of that?
Perforated steel plank. Here it is, right here. That's the job done. That's one of the platoons right there.
Okay.
Each one of the platoons had a specific job to do. And the very last thing that I did when I left Vietnam was I dug the trench on the end, and they run the planks down into that.
Yep.
and then I covered them up, and that was the anchor.
Or else it would have just pulled. It could have
it would've
pushed.
pulled- Yeah, it would pull loose.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it must have been. It was really loose soil then in the delta.
Say it again.
It was like really loose when you got wet and
yeah,
wet
just
and
wet. Everybody got stuck out there, and it was a mess to start with. And that was another deal. Even at the end of it, we got mortared and rocketed, and a lot of wounded during that time. And it was pretty stressful. I extended 30 days, so I get out early when I come home. I thought, this is the stupidest thing I ever did.
I bet
Because it was just about as bad as the beginning. The end was almost as bad as the beginning. You know.
So at the end, do you think that it was harder to get mortared because then you're like you can actually go home?
So close to getting home.
Yeah. Like
yeah, I was. I didn't hardly sleep. I didn't sleep for 30 days. I didn't sleep at night.
Yeah, I like not even close to that much mortars and rockets. But in Iraq, like at the middle, it didn't matter. Like a couple mortars and rockets didn't matter. Like it was whatever. You didn't even move. But like the last week or so, it was the scariest time I've ever been.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's like
was so close.
Yeah, you did it all.
Close to getting out of there, you know. So anyway, then finally get out of there.
Yeah.
And they sent us back to the Michelin rubber plantation, of all places, you know.
All
because that's where our headquarters is, and that's
Okay.
where the caribou took us out of there. And I said, "Man, this thing's going to crash going out of there." So then they fly us into Townsend, and that's a big airport where the big jets were coming in.
Yep.
So then they loaded us on that, and so we got first class service all the way to Hawaii. And when we landed in Hawaii, one of the tires blew, and a chunk of it come up and hit the flap.
Yep.
And so they had to unload us all, and they had to inspect that plane. Well, big mistake, letting a bunch of guys off.
In Hawaii.
In Hawaii.
I bet that was just like just spreading out.
Just disappeared. And of course, then the stewardess had to go and find everybody. And by that time, after 4 hours, we're all drunk. And because we weren't getting any alcohol over there. Very little. So that's why I didn't mention about the Australians getting a lot of beer. But if we got 2 beers in a week, that was a lot of beer.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 beers in a week, that was it.
So going back just a little bit, when you left the Mekong Delta, like, or when you flew to your headquarters before you got to go home, did you leave as a battalion or as a company?
No, we left as individuals because when our time was up, when our however many days we had left, we've had 89 days left. Like for instance, Larry Weimer,
Yep.
and Mike Leininger, and myself. There were a group of maybe 20 of us that had gone to leadership preparation school. So we had a little bit more time in than the other guys did.
Okay.
And so we got to go a little bit ahead of them. And so a lot of our company was still there when we left.
Okay. Did your company stay and then get backfilled by replacements?
Yes.
So your company was there for
Our company
years.
stayed until 72.
Okay.
Yeah, they stayed right up until 72. And so they're still a unit yet. They actually are airborne now, and they call them sappers now. They're still D Company of the 27th Combat Engineers.
Oh, wow.
They're still there. And about 25% of them. The reason I know this is George Harris, he goes to the reunions down there.
Okay.
And they usually have, they put on a show for the guys that come down.
Mm-hmm.
And about 1/4 of them are female jumpers. And yeah, they're female combat engineers, and they jump with a full pack just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And he says they're mostly Hispanic women, and so pretty impressive that they do that work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool that they're still there.
Yeah.
Like that the unit came back.
Yeah, it's still
like you let it there and they came back.
Intact. It's still going.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, still intact, still going.
So how long? So they got you back on the plane in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That had to have been something.
Yeah.
Then where'd you fly into?
Poor girls.
I could almost imagine how bad they hated their job.
They were understanding. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, they were really cool, and so
Where'd you fly into the States?
We landed in Oakland, Traverse Air Force Base.
Okay.
Travis Air Force Base is where we landed. And from there, I'm trying to think where we went from there. It was kind of a blur because
Yeah.
we were up for quite a long time to get out. And one of the things I recall is one of my friends, DeBreeze, they took blood samples and everything else. And if there was anything wrong with you didn't have to go home. And so he didn't get to go home right away.
Oh.
And another one, because we were up so long, we were probably up for 36 or 40 hours at least.
Yep.
And he had a seizure. And I happened to be right there when he was having a seizure.
Okay.
And of course, he didn't get to go home either. And so going through all of that, and then you don't get to go home right away.
Right away.
Yeah. And so, but DeVries, he was a good friend of Larry Weimer's, who Larry Weimer and I, we speak every month practically.
Yep.
You know, and so it's kind of good that you can keep up with it.
Absolutely.
So my display that I have down there,
Yep.
jumping around a little bit here.
That's fine.
But my granddaughter did the research through findagrave.com.
Yep.
And out of the 120 of us that left were there, 37 have died already.
Okay.
37. So, but a lot of them are like 10 years older than me. You know, the NCOs and the,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but Sergeant DeVries is one of them.
Oh,
He was
okay.
one of them. And so, let's see, who else? Oh, Sergeant Taylor,
Yep.
the one that I referred to as Sergeant Gummer.
Yeah.
He passed away too. Yeah.
I suppose they were. Yeah. I suppose they were 10 years.
10 years,
10 years
yeah,
older.
10 years older. They'd be in their 80, late 80s, some of them early 90s, you know? So time goes by.
It does go by. That's the one thing you can't stop.
Yeah. So
Well, it's nice that you found them and keep have your memorial down there.
yeah, well, that's the idea. There's 120 of us, so my friend Pat Minahan, he's going to have to make a lot more crosses.
You're gonna need more yard space.
Well, I'm going to switch it. I'm going to switch it so that it's along the front of those pine trees down there.
Oh, okay.
And so then you can drive by. When you drive by, you'll be looking right at it from the road instead of
Instead of at 90.
at an angle.
Oh, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I just thought it'd be 2 years. Or let's see, this is the second year now.
Yep.
I think I told you about when I finished that. I said it's been too long. I should have done it a long time ago.
Well, at least you're doing it.
Yeah.
Have you
You're
seen
doing
it? Have you seen my memorial? Down?
No, I haven't.
Oh, when you go home tonight, just drive by there. Go down on the Highway 75, then make a right on Highway 7, and then
Come back.
look down in there.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, there's 28 crosses there now, and we got 9 more. We got 9 more to put up. So,
Okay.
but anyway, yeah, all those guys have a history and they all have a story.
Yeah.
So one thing in this, let's see,
Which one?
that one,
Okay.
that one. So I just gonna briefly, I'm gonna go over these guys here. I just find it. But all these, okay, so these are the guys right here that we lost. Okay, you could put them on. If you
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah, and that's the best part about this is to remember the guys that didn't make it.
Okay. So, Gerald Stewart, he's the first one that was killed that I told you about when I came back from the ammo dump explosion.
Oh, yep. Yep.
So he was the first one. And then Sergeant Lopez, he was killed in a rocket attack in Junction City. And it's documented and where it happened and then both these guys here also got killed in Junction City.
On the left side.
Yeah, both of them did.
Okay.
Okay, so now if you flip the page, you see all those commendations back there?
Yeah.
Every one of those has a story. Every one of those has a combat story. They wouldn't be on that page if something hadn't happened to them guys. And every one of those guys, I knew them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a big deal.
That is a big deal. Yeah, and it's really cool that you have this.
Yeah.
Like,
I knew every one of those guys, and I knew everything that happened with those guys. But I didn't experience all those things because
Yeah.
each of us had a different experience. You know, they were there, I was here, they were there, you know.
yeah.
And so But each one of those guys has a story.
And I think that's a lot of things on combat. Like you could be standing side by side or back to back, and it's a whole different war.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, but in the end, basically, we all experience the same thing. You know, we get when you come back from combat, which you probably understand, it's you have a heightened sense of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
You're always on the edge. You're always thinking and looking and being careful. You know, and that's what I tell people. You don't be scared. You be careful.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you're scared, then you can't be careful.
No, scared's not good.
Yeah, yeah. You just don't function right.
No.
And so basically, there was only a couple times when I was really scared over there. And that's because I didn't have my brothers with me.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, and it like you talk about being in that fighting position. Like being by yourself is terrible.
Yeah,
Like that's scary all by itself.
I think what makes people survive is having a partner always over there. You kind of fight for your brother, so to speak. You know,
Absolutely.
You stay alive because of him.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it's all about.
And I think that's life. I think
Yeah,
you'll do more for someone else than you'll do for yourself.
I think that's very true. Yeah.
That's why you always have a battle buddy.
Like I shared a little bit, Bob, in our little visit that we had of you being a police officer, and you said the thing that scared you most was in a crowd, somebody taking your gun away and shooting you with it.
Yeah, it wasn't getting shot. Getting shot with my own weapon.
Yeah,
My biggest fear.
I could see that.
because you're in close quarters, you know, close.
Yeah, I mean that's something we would have never had to worry about because no one got that close.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
one-
were in plenty of tussles out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. So one of the things that I did really stupid over there, we're in a convoy, right?
Yep.
And I have a brand new radio that I got from the PX.
Personal radio, like for
little Vietnamese kids are quick. I
Mhm.
mean, they're really quick. He jumped up on the back of that. There's a window in the back of the lowboy.
Mhm.
The tractor, they're tractors. So he can get right up on the back, and he could reach right in there. He reached right in there and grabbed that radio. I was looking the other way,
Yep.
and he just took off in the jungle. I took off after him in the jungle.
Oh.
You know,
That was
really
stupid.
Yeah, let's
radio.
go.
I mean, for a radio, and I ran him down, knocked him down, took my radio back, and I cussed at him and
Yep.
walked. Didn't even think about getting,
No. Not in the moment.
Radio.
yeah, over radio.
Yeah. In the moment.
It just really upset me,
Yeah.
You jump in my truck and grab my radio. But that's how, you just don't even, you're not afraid.
No, you're not.
You're
No.
not afraid. Or if you're afraid, you wouldn't do that.
No.
So,
I think if you're afraid in that kind of situation all the time, you couldn't make it.
no.
You wouldn't like you wouldn't survive.
No.
Yeah. No.
It would be so miserable that it wouldn't
Yeah.
be good. I got a question.
Yeah.
Going back just a little bit about the guys that got killed in action. Were you like as it was happening? Did you have time for funerals or any kind of memorial service or nothing? Nothing.
No.
That
You
would.
know what? What really upset me
Yep.
is we had a chaplain
Mm-hmm.
that scolded us after one of our guys got killed. I thought, what is wrong with you, dude?
For what?
That we should be more careful.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, that really helped a lot. So he was on my list for a long time.
I bet he was.
Yeah, so I thought, what
That's
is
crazy.
wrong with you? Well, he was green as grass. He didn't know diddly about anything,
Yeah. Well, that would be hard. I mean, amongst other things coming home, it'd be hard, like not even having a memorial service for the people that got killed.
Yeah. So the thing about the wall, the Vietnam Memorial Wall now,
Yep.
when you go to the wall and you find your buds on the wall,
Yep.
they have a whole editorial about them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything about them pretty much. Sergeant Littell is not on this one. I'm missing him. How come I'm not seeing him? Maybe it's not. Do you see a Sergeant Littell on there?
There's no picture at the very bottom.
Oh, he's on the
Oh,
bottom?
there's no photo.
Oh, there's no photograph. Okay, so for instance, he was an older guy, and they had a history about his history on the
Okay.
wall. The whole history about him is on the wall, and same with Lopez, and the same with Gerald Stewart. But to me, if I had an opportunity, which I hope maybe some of the guys did, is to talk to Gerald Tewitt's family.
Yes.
You know, like I did to Wardlow's family.
Yep.
You know, that's the kind of thing that would really be helpful, I think. But I wasn't close to him. He wasn't my close buddy.
Yep.
But I'm hoping that maybe he had some close buddies. That
Hopefully
maybe
someone
that.
did.
Yeah.
And hopefully the family was willing to talk, because there could be families that didn't want to even deal with it too.
Yeah, that's true. But as time goes by,
Yeah.
maybe the direct family don't, but maybe the grandchildren.
The grandchildren for sure.
You know.
The grandchildren would probably be way more
Yeah.
receptive to it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Hopefully that does happen.
Yeah. So that. Anyway. A lot of water under the bridge since then, but there's so many things that have happened that have maybe encouraged my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to see the struggle that the South Vietnamese that came here had to go through to get here. And
After the war.
after 75, yeah, after the fall.
Yep.
And then of course all the research I've done, I want to find out why did this happen? Why did they let this happen? And it all comes down to two people that let this happen, because we had the War One.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Kissinger and Ford gave the war back. They just gave it away. They didn't want to deal with it anymore, so they just let them have it. But up to that point, you know,
Yeah.
the South Vietnamese were still independent. So,
It'd be nice if it was a lesson that got learned.
yeah. Well, over the years, it's happened, you know.
More than once.
Yeah. And so, but Americans get tired of war. They don't like war. They don't want to see their sons and daughters sent off to some strange place and dying for a cause they don't understand.
Yep.
And so, you know, that's the way it is. But I do think that, I think they asked me this in that documentary. And I said, I do think we did a good thing because we instilled the spirit of freedom in the South Vietnamese, you know,
Yep.
because we came to support them. And my son went over there, Jason went over to South Vietnam and then North Vietnam too.
Okay.
South Vietnam is completely different, he said, than North Vietnam. They're just like operating just like they used to, except they pay the communist rent.
Okay.
That's
So they
basically
did.
what they're doing is they're paying rent to the communists, but they're still doing what they did. And but on North Vietnam, they never experienced freedom, so they don't know that. And so it's a whole different deal.
Well, that's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, but the North Vietnamese, they never experienced freedom,
Yep.
where the South Vietnamese have experienced that. So one little thing I'd like to say is I chose Dr. Kimberly Tran as my eye doctor,
Yep.
and knowing that she was from Vietnam. Did you have her? You did. So you know Dr. Tran. Okay, so she told me her story and her family story.
Okay.
And so when the communists chased her father out of North Vietnam,
Yep.
there were Catholics up there and Buddhists and religious people in North Vietnam. So they chased them out, about 2 million of them. And they all fled to South Vietnam.
Okay.
Okay, so then Dr. Tran's father met her mother in South Vietnam. Okay, so I think one of the reasons that we got into that war is because President Kennedy was Catholic. And there was a lot of concern about the freedoms over there.
Yep.
And so instead of letting those 2 million Catholics get slaughtered over there, he said, okay, we're going to go and do something about it. And that's all I think our cause was, just to go there in the first place.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I've never heard that. That's
a fact, because communists have no religion.
no, that is their religion.
Yeah, no. So anybody that opposes them, they're going to kill them, or they're going to be reoriented. And
Yeah.
so, but that's how I think it all started.
Okay.
And but anyway, Dr. Tran's parents made it here.
Yep.
But she told me that 2 of her uncles were killed. They fought for the South Vietnamese, and they got killed in that war. So 2 of her mom's brothers died in that war. And so, and I don't know if other ones did or not, but
Yep.
she did mention 2 of them. And so,
That kind of ties you back together, doesn't it?
yeah. Then, one other thing that happened to me, wearing this hat, my wife bought it for me. She said, you need to wear that hat, be proud of your service.
Yep.
And so she would have her nails done and everything in a beauty shop in Houston.
Yep.
And that was all run by Vietnamese women.
Mhm.
And so I came in there one time, and a lady about in her 50s came up to me and she said, thank you for what you did over there. And I kind of taken aback and, what do you mean? And she said, well, before the army came, the Viet Cong would come and they would take our young men and make them fight, and they would take our food. And when the army came, that stopped. And so then I asked her, where are you from? And she was only 8 miles from Bin Long, where we built that runway. Her little
Really?
village was only 8 miles from there. So how is that for a small world, huh?
That is a small world.
It is. It's crazy. And I tried to find her again. I wanted to, because I told that story on KDMA.
Okay.
That first interview that I had, I told that story. And so I wanted to go back and find her again, but then she had moved to New York.
Oh.
So she had gone. But anyway, it would have been fun to get more history about
Yeah, absolutely.
that, you know. So personally, you know, I had a personal experience with that. So,
That's pretty amazing.
yeah, pretty cool stuff.
It is. And like on a kind of like that, how many people have you talked to just because you wear a U.S. Army hat? It's got to be.
Oh, because I wear the hat?
Yeah.
Oh,
'cause-
lots. And you know, I'd like to make a card up, and I should have done it a long time ago, for anybody that, you know, thanks me for my service.
Yeah.
And so that they can get a little more information about me and about what's going on.
Yeah.
But I have run into quite a few guys, Vietnam vets. That's why I wear the hat, is because I want to find those guys. And there's a lot of guys that don't wear the hat. And I did run into one from Chicago, and he was he was there a year after me in the very same place as I was. He was in Dao Tiang and then in Black Horse Base Camp, and he's from Chicago.
Oh wow! And you would have never known that.
No. And so we met in the dollar store in Morris, and of course my wife was back there and his wife was back there, and we're just going on and on and on, you know.
Yeah.
For like 45 minutes, and and his wife said, "Don't worry, I'm used to this," she said. So, but yeah, it was pretty cool that he had more or less followed my footsteps over there a year later. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but he said it was a lot safer. I told him about what happened when we were there.
Yep.
He said it was a lot safer. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah. So, but yeah, I've done every book that I can find, everything I can find in the last 50 years that I can find about Vietnam. I read it and I try to figure out why and what happened.
Yep.
And all the things that I've learned, it all boils down to Ho Chi Minh and not Roosevelt, but who was his predecessor? Or his,
After him.
yeah, who was, he's the one who dropped the bomb and
Truman.
Truman, yeah, okay. So Truman did not like Asians. And Ho Chi Minh wanted to have a meeting with Truman, and he wouldn't meet with him. And so instead of meeting with Truman, he went to the communists. So had Truman just taken the time to talk to him, this might have never happened.
Yeah, and it's those little things that that change the whole world.
Because
So many lives.
Vietnam was our ally fighting the Japanese in the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but Ho Chi Minh wanted the French help, because the French come in and it was just like us with the British.
You know,
The French came in and took over that country.
and colonized it.
Yeah, they colonized it, and they made slaves out of those people, pretty much. And Ho Chi Minh wanted them gone. So
Mhm.
of course, France is our ally. Without France, we wouldn't be a free country, because
Yep.
when we fought the British, the French were on our side. So
Yeah.
no matter what the French do, we're going to stay with them, you know. So the politics got involved there, and it's just a shame that it all happened. But you know, so
Yeah.
I think that's what started the whole thing. Because Truman wouldn't meet with Ho Chi Minh.
Well, that's good history.
Yeah. Well, I've been studying it.
Yeah.
for
Yeah. I
50
never.
years.
Yeah.
So just trying to figure out why did this happen, you know. But it's all because of France is what the reason.
I think a lot of the wars start off just like they could have been avoided. Like one thing would have happened, and like nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But once they start killing people, just because they don't agree with what they think,
yeah,
somebody has to help.
mm-hmm.
Somebody has to step in and do something.
Do something.
And so I have no hardship feelings about what we did. You know, we did our job like we were supposed to.
Yeah.
But the politicians didn't follow through.
No, and that's a continuous problem.
Yeah. So
What did when after you got back and did you come back to Ortonville?
actually,
Or
my
Lewis?
mom and dad lived in Osseo, so I stayed down there with them. But I would come back to Nassau.
Or Nassau, yeah.
You know, and I came back there. They always would have a Thanksgiving bingo, turkey bingo, you know, they do. And I came back home then, and it was fun to see everybody, and they were glad to see me and everything.
Yep.
And so then, right after Christmas, I went back to California and went to work out there. And of course, you didn't want to talk about the war in California because nobody wanted to talk about it. You know? So
Mhm.
it just got shuffled under the
Shuffled
rug.
under.
The only ones that would really acknowledge my service were my superiors who were Second World War veterans.
Okay.
Almost every one of them were Second World War veterans. And they understood what was going on. They really did. Good guys.
And that they were, well, that's good. At least there was somebody that was decent about it.
Yeah, they asked me, you know, they'd say,
Yep.
how's it going? You know, how are you holding up? How are you dealing with this? I said, I'm good. I'm good. I kind of drinking too much, but I'm okay. But, you know, I got over it. I got over that.
And then did you stay out there in California?
I
then?
did, yeah. I got married out there, and Jennifer was born out there.
Okay. So you were out there for a
Yeah,
while.
Jennifer's a California kid. Yeah, so 8 years, yeah. Stayed out in California 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And met Elizabeth, she's my first wife. She lives up on the golf course. I
Yep.
don't know if you guys met her, but nice person, just wasn't the right one.
Wasn't very. Not right.
That
So-
happened.
that
I know,
happens.
that happened, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
So and then where'd you go after California? Just
I
like a
started
little.
farming. I started farming. I bought a farm when I was working in California, north of Millbank
Okay.
in 1969. So that's two years after I got back from Vietnam, I was buying a farm. And then I didn't move back to the farm until 72. So I was getting machinery and getting
Yep.
things going. And so,
Is that something you always had wanted to do?
oh yeah. For
That
sure.
was a dream
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Time I was a little kid, I was playing in the dirt. You know, had to play in the dirt and be a farmer. Well, I got to do that until the interest rate killed me, and that was the end of that. When do you think I met you, Bob? What year? It had to be back in the 70s
We've been
sometime.
friends for many, many years.
I know, it had to be in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
In Big Stone?
Yeah. Bob, you worked for the city for, I don't know, 60 years, 50 years?
100 years, 45 years.
I know you were there a long time.
I started in, when did I start?
I remember seeing,
77.
what year?
77.
77. Sure. Yeah, that sounds right.
November.
Because 72, I came back in
November
72, and I was hauling mail from 72 to, substitute for Jack Close, 72 to 76, I think. And I'm sure that's probably about the time I met you.
Yeah.
And that's where you're farming at the same time?
Yeah,
Farming in the mail?
yeah, I just, just substitute in the morning. Just deliver the mail in the morning so we had a little money, because we were absolutely broke for the first 5 years. Because you come from working at a job, and then you come back to no steady money. coming in.
Yeah. That'd be pretty tough.
Yeah, so, but I did go to a vet's ag class, and so that was pretty good interaction with a lot of Vietnam vets back then.
Okay.
And
Where was that at?
at Marietta, and we did get a little money for that. I can't remember how much it was, but as I recall, it was more than what I made in combat. It was much.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was like $350 a month or something. And when I was in Vietnam, I got $247 a month. $147 for SP4 and $100 combat pay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
so $247 a month. So,
It's a lot of work for it.
but I saved enough to buy a new car when I got home.
What'd you get when you got?
67 Ford Durling 500. $2,500, brand new car.
How long did it last?
Oh, about 4 months. And it didn't go fast enough, so I got another one. The Chevys were beating me, so I traded it up for a Chevy.
For Chevy?
Yeah, I got a Camaro. I got a '68 Camaro.
Oh, yeah, I would beat that.
Yeah, that would go pretty fast. So, yeah, so only 4 months I had a Fairlane, but it was a nice car.
So then you had the Camaro for a while?
Say it again.
You had the Camaro for a while after that?
I did. I had it until I bought that farm, and I'm trying to think. I sold it to make a down payment. I think that's what it was.
You sold the car to get the farm?
Yeah, I sold the car to make a down payment on the farm.
Then what'd you do after you lost the farm? Or?
Oh, I drove truck for Head and Herbert for about 10 years.
Okay.
Had
So you
child
still lived
support-
here
had
then?
child support to pay,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I put 1 million miles on. That was my goal. And 10 years, I put 1 million miles on that. That's it. I'm done. So, but of course, I met Sullivan. See,
Okay, while you were
yeah, while I was
driving around.
That was the good part. Yeah. So
Well, so where did you meet her?
in McAllen, and she was a nurse, and two of her sisters and another nurse came into a place where I was eating,
Yeah.
and I seen them come in there. And I thought, oh, I got to meet that girl.
Just that chance meeting, that was
Just
it.
a chance, yeah, just by chance.
Oh, wow.
She always says, "How come you ever showed up down there anyway?" But yeah, that was the good part of the truck driving. So, and she actually went with me. I drove for her maybe 2 years after I met her,
Okay.
and she drove with me, and we went to quite a few states.
Oh, that'd be fun though.
Yeah, she came up, met my family, met my mom, brought her up here January 6th. Snow this deep, cold, down in Nassau.
Yeah.
She came trudging through into my mom's house, and my mom instantly liked her. Because she's tough.
Yeah, I bet she didn't like the snow though.
Bella didn't like the snow.
I bet not at
Don't
all.
like the snow. No, for sure.
So then did you end up down there after you got done truck driving?
Yeah, wound up spending 8 years in Texas. I think it was but I come back and forth.
Yep.
But most of the time I spent in Texas. And then I would say about, I think it was about 1990 that I bought that Trail Gas building. And then,
Yep.
and then 20 years ago, Stella and I got that little house where, the one next to where we moved in.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've been over about 25 years.
25 years. And that you came from Texas and moved back here.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well, it's a good thing you came back.
say it again.
It's a good thing you came back.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be back. Stella likes it here too. She won't admit it, but it's nice. It's easy. No, she's so bored. She's used to the big city.
Oh, I suppose
You know,
that would be, yeah.
All the shopping and the food, and so now I got to take her to Fargo or Sioux Falls
Oh,
or something.
something. To do some shopping and get out in the
Yeah.
Spend some of that
Bustle.
money, Jerry.
What?
Spend some of that money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm spending now. That's why I said don't stick to my ribs. It's just gonna go.
just gone.
So, but yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Nice being up here with family.
Yeah.
Jennifer and Greg and the kids, the grandkids.
Yep.
Yeah, so got to watch them grow up. That was fun.
I bet
So
they're.
we've been here. Yeah, we've been here 20 years, and so Nathan was only. Well, I was there when Nathan was born, so Nathan's 22 now, I think. And so they were in Becker when he was born. So yeah, I got to watch him grow up and
Well, that's cool.
got to go fishing with him. Stella likes fishing with Nathan. He's a good fisherman. If we don't catch fish, he'll catch them for us.
Does he clean them for you?
Yeah,
for you
he
too?
does. He does.
Oh, then I'll go fishing too then.
Yeah, so he fillets them and everything. So yeah, and then of course the girls, we enjoy them too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so both of them go-kart drivers since they were little kids. And, so that's fun.
Yep.
So, but overall, this Vietnam experience with Stella's cancer and stuff,
Yeah.
I really drew on that experience getting through this. And Bob, you've got a pretty good taste of it too.
Yeah.
Now, you got to have some real stamina
I go down to the oncologist and I walk in here and who's in there?
to.
Run into him.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew that Bob was down there getting treatment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to deal with it.
Yes, it does.
It does. I mean, it takes stamina, and I admire you for it. I really do.
I admire you, what you guys went through.
Well, it's just it's only temporary.
Yeah. I'm sure it's no different than like what it takes to cop. It's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Like you learn a lot. That's hard.
Well, Bob had a pretty close call. I don't know if you know about his close call.
I do not know about his close
He
call.
got buried.
I got in
A trench fell in.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the water main broke, and the top of the hole was about this far above my head.
Oh,
They had to dig him out.
When I took a deep breath when the water got to here, and I remember everything going gray. And the only thing I thought of, I never thought of my family, but my buddy was getting married, and I thought, if I die, who's going to be his best man?
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
one of the-
that
yeah.
gives you
What a
that.
weird thing to think. You know, didn't even think of my family. You know?
yeah.
Well, that the last thing was in your mind, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then when I went out, the guy was trying to dig me out,
Yep.
hit me in the back with a backhoe, and I floated to the top, and my head hit back, and my airway must have opened up, and spent 3 days in the hospital. Made it to the wedding though.
Well, hey,
There you go. See?
you still got to be best man.
I was hurting.
Oh, I bet.
Well, good. That's good.
Yeah,
But those kind of experiences, they get you through all these other
made you
ones.
stronger.
And I think we found the same thing. Like if it wasn't for the Iraq of all that badness, like that kind of sets you up to make it easier for the next bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like where it's something that would have crushed you otherwise.
Yeah.
Like you have like a base badness to fall back on.
So
I don't know how to
last
explain
spring, when it was minus 24 and we were getting up at 4:30 in the morning, taking Philip to Sioux Falls, it was every day.
Yum.
I kind of, just for an instant, just for a little bit, I was going to feel sorry for myself. And I said, oh, forget that. That she's the hero. Said, get your butt up and get going and just shut up.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's really, you just suck it up and you don't, you know,
Yeah. You gotta do it.
you don't feel sorry for yourself. You just get up and go. That's it. And
I think
so-
those are words to live by.
Yeah, I think so. I try to set that example for my grandkids and, you know, everybody else. Just get up and go. Stop complaining.
It doesn't get you anywhere
Yeah, so,
other than miserable.
yeah, so, but, yeah, so like I said, I have drawn on that experience in this past year. This past year has been, you know, but, we're very fortunate that everything is coming together. I mean, Stella's feeling good and she's doing things and, you know, so.
It's amazing, and I don't know like why. It'd be nice to know like how you can take your past experience in Vietnam, turn it into a good thing that gives you hope for Stella's cancer,
Oh, sure.
and where other people take it and go the other way with it and start drinking.
I think it's all in your upbringing and what kind of people you were with when you were there. And, you know, a lot of the guys had some really bad experiences over there with drugs and with who knows whatever. But
Yeah,
our unit was a cohesive unit. We all depended on each other. And if somebody was messing up, we straightened their ass out real quick. You know, I mean, that's basically what it was. And you just didn't do that kind of stuff.
yep,
You know, there were a couple guys there that were doing that. They were smoking pot and that came to an end real quick. We want you on your toes. We want to depend on you.
yep,
But there's units that there were too many guys all scrambled together
yep,
and no brotherhood established.
yep.
And so they didn't have that really strong bond like I got to have with these guys. And so I can see where that would be difficult for them to come out of it better,
Yeah.
you know. And so, like I said, every one of us had a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them. So
Yeah. It's got to be. It's nice to see like people that can take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing.
yeah.
And like however you do that in your mind, other than taking a bad thing and feeling sorry for yourself. I think that's like a testament to yourself.
Well, you just do what you got to do. I think about, I have a real kinship with my great grandfather. I think about what he must have gone through, and what I went through is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing compared to what he went through.
And what did your grandfather go through?
The Civil War, 5,000 soldiers dying in one battle where he was in, and think of that. He had to be a part of that,
Yeah.
and he survived that, and 4 more battles he survived. You know, and so yeah. So just to elaborate a little bit on him, something really sad happened. He had 5 children.
Okay.
And he had 3 boys and 2 girls. And both of his teenage girls died at 15 and 16 years old.
Oh.
Can you imagine losing your 15 and 16-year-old daughters? They're buried there in North Marietta. But his sons, they lived. Of course, one of them was my grandpa,
Okay.
my mom's dad, and then my 2 uncles. They both lived, but the girls didn't survive, and he lost them. And so, unfortunately, my grandpa was only 1 year old when he died. So he didn't live very long. So he probably, you know,
Yeah.
there was no history. We didn't hear anything about him drinking or anything like that. But he was Irish, so it's possible.
Probably happened.
It's possible. I guess I didn't tell you that. He came here illegally. He crossed in New York State,
Okay.
and they turned him away at Ellis Island. So they took him up to Canada and dropped him off, and they walked back. And they caught him in the border, and it's documented that they caught him there. And they'll either go back to Ireland or join the army. And so he joined the army. And so that's the history of
That's the history
the
of.
Irish. Kern, K-I-E-R-N-S, Kearns.
Wasn't much of a choice to me, but it
No.
Well, they were starving to death in Ireland,
Ireland.
you know, and so that's all. So I'm a descendant of an illegal, but actually he became
legal. Yeah.
he became legal. Yeah. So,
Well, I think that I appreciate it coming and talking.
yeah. Well, thanks for
Like,
doing it. Thanks
yeah,
for doing
and-
it, Chuck.
And without you, like when it started years ago, with scrap metal, like when you came up to work and wanted scrap metal,
Oh,
the only reason the reason that I started not selling to you or whatever, started talking to you was because your hat.
yeah.
It was like, well,
Yeah,
because
my
there was
wife-
at the time there was a bunch of scrap metal dealers I didn't know yet.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm going to help a veteran more than I'm going to help anyone else. So that's where it all
See, I
started.
didn't know you either until then, and I didn't know your history either. You know.
Yeah. So your hat was the whole reason, and then you're the one that talked me into doing all this.
Oh.
You were the first person that ever came and talked to me about anything.
We had a nice talk the last time you were down there.
Yeah. When you brought that car from the fire department.
Oh
It
yeah.
was the first time I ever talked to anyone about anything. So you started the whole thing.
Yeah.
I thought if you have good stories, there's got to be a ton of people that'll talk about it. So
Well, I
thank you.
I think there's a lot of other people that would, you know, just have to be
They will.
motivated to do it. So,
Yeah.
but don't do it very often.
No,
But
I appreciate it.
I do too.
yeah,
I think it's good for people to hear. Like, there's not very many people that have veterans in their family that talk about it. So it opens up a whole conversation.
Allie and Nathan have really, their eyes have been open,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, you know, because they've been a part of this thing.
Yeah.
Especially Allie, because now this past summer, she intimately got to know these people by researching, you know,
Yeah.
if they're the right ones. That's why I said, Allie, got to make sure you get the right one. You got to cross-reference. And you know, were they in the Army? Were they combat engineers? You know, were they from this town? And so she did that. That took her quite a while to do it.
Yeah. And with all that, like the story lives on.
Yeah, each one of those people she found, she got to see their story.
Yeah. And
So
the kids.
She found 27 guys this summer, and each one of those, she got the story from each one of those.
Wow.
Yeah, 27 of my band of brothers, they're gone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And if the story lives on, like, I think that's
But again, all those names that you see there, just think
Yep.
that every one of them got a commendation or something. They got wounded or they got,
Something.
and so every one of them have a combat story to tell. You
Hmm.
know, not only just me, but
Yeah.
every one of them. So
And yeah, I appreciate telling it. I think we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
And I will, at the end of this, we will get some more of the pictures and stuff we didn't get in here.
yeah, because